So what we've got here is how I survived boredom, getting through the Survive as a single player for 1,250 minutes, whatever it is, an eternity. Which, at least in theory, can only be done in survival mode, not creative mode, for fairly obvious reasons. I did game the system a bit by starting the game in creative mode, and then filling chests with all sorts of items to let me entertain myself while playing in survival mode, and that's basically what I did. And the way I stayed entertained, let's turn on Levitate here, was by restoring this bridge. This is the big fuck-off bridge, which connects two parts of the map in pretty far south. That's the radiation zone right there, and I'm all the way here, so I'm in basically the bottom of the map. And what I'm trying to figure out, I have built this entire bridge. I reinforced it with, this last bar isn't done, but everything else is the highest grade steel, which is absurd. It has 1,200 hit points, 12,000 hit points for each block, and that's just the first layer. The two layers below, it's another 6,000 and then another 3,000. So to remove one of these blocks, and believe me, I've had to do this when making mistakes, is a process of banging through 21,000 hit points worth of material, which even with max level mining tools and a 600x, neither of which I have in this character, I might add, takes considerable doing. So I have restored this entire bridge, and I did kind of screw up here. Like, you see how this is a solid line, and over here it isn't? That's because on this side, I actually had to rebuild much more of it. The way the bridge is, when the map spawns in a Navezgane, there's two, like, quarter sections of bridge to sort of illustrate that there was a bridge that collapsed. Funny thing, when upgrading, particularly when you're going through the wet concrete phase on blocks, the bridge or any structure becomes less strong than it does beforehand, and 2/3 of this quarter completely fell into the abyss because I upgraded too many at once. So that meant I had to rebuild most of this side, never mind all of the rest, never mind also restore that section. So this one is not perfectly even, but it is largely complete at this point. I still need to... This is effectively the railing. I need to bring the railing up to max level. I'm probably going to do that in a minute. And not record it because it's incredibly boring. But the payoff here, the money shot, if you will, these two nerd columns of rebar go all the way to the bottom of the map. That is my headlight on. Or the bottom of the canyon, which basically is the bottom of the map. The map extends a handful of blocks beneath. By the way, you see this metal? That's the bits of bridge that fell when I had my little mistake of upgrading too quickly, and most of the bridge fell off into this right here. I didn't bother to clean it up because I don't care. So these two columns here, these massive nerd columns of rebar, I actually suspect they're holding up the whole damn bridge, and if I remove them, the whole thing is going to collapse, because I think the 7 days physics and structure mechanics are sufficiently wonky and frankly underwhelming that, oh look, we can see the sunrise, or sunset actually. I should interject, I'm on day one, because since this was a playthrough to get an achievement and upgrade this bridge, I kept continually spamming in console to set the time to 4 a.m., the beginning of the day, on day one. Anyway, I strongly suspect that this little bridge, this not so little bridge, this massive stonking bridge, will collapse when I remove these two columns, because I don't think there's just enough structural integrity to hold it together. Even though this is all, except for those which I'm going to upgrade, max level steel. The economic cost where I have done this not without abusing creative mode and giving myself untold chests of items first, would just take eons of playtime, because I don't think you can even craft this business here, the reinforced steel. You have to buy it, and it is, the sell price, and I have like base level bartering, is over 1,000. I don't know what the trader charges for it, but I'm sure it is a shit ton. It would cost an obscene fortune to try and build this bridge. And that's just the final stage. Never mind all the concrete. Never mind the rest of the materials that went in here. It would take an absolute eternity to do this legit, if you will. And I strongly suspect it's not going to stay up. So what I'm going to do is pause the video, finish this railing, not that I think it's going to do any good, set the time back to 0 or 4 a.m. and see if the bridge collapses when I remove the nerd column. So stay tuned. So I have finished upgrading just the stupid little railing, if you will. Meaning this entire bridge, every single component of it, is made out of max level steel. Except for this one little belly button thing. I didn't actually mean to fill in that block, so that was done by mistake. And I reset the time because, well, I figured I'd get the sun rising as this bridge finally meets its doom. I think if I remove this one, which is just supporting one side, the whole thing won't collapse. I think it's just the one column that is necessary, but I'm not sure. So we're going to start with that. Oh, well, that answers that then, doesn't it? That took no time at all. Now, it was interesting. What gave way was the stretcher. There was a stretcher here that both went across and lengthwise. And it's interesting that that is what gave up the ghost when I removed this. That I would not have guessed. Now, we have an interesting situation where we lost a little bit there on this stretcher, and we lost a little bit here on this one. That's probably not the technical term. I am not a bridge architect. And that tells me that the whole thing just shifted. So I'm actually going to cheat, and I think I'm going to rebuild the missing bits and see if they stay upright with just the one column there. I think they should, because I more or less replicated what I did here, except for in a somewhat more tidy fashion on the multiplayer server where I'm playing, with 2 support columns, but they're both in the center, I think. It's like one's here and the other's like here, and there's no side support columns going all the way down. So that was a weird shift there. I mean, this is a game which is perennially in beta. I mean, it's still, strictly speaking, now in alpha, but it's been this way for 4 years. Maybe 5, I think. This summer, this game will have been around for 4 years. The devs work at it at a snail's pace. The only reason I can forgive them is it's a handful of jokers working on this game with whatever budget they have. This is different than, say, Valve Inc., where they have buckets of cash, billions of dollars, yet they still only have 4 suckers working on, say, TF2. That said, there are definitely some really quirky aspects to building in this game, which in one sense is really kind of zombie Minecraft. And that was a really weird shift that just happened. So I'm going to pause the video again and repair at least this side part here and this here and this here. I don't think I'm redoing the stretcher. I think we've more or less proven that the stretchers are completely useless based on how they gave way in that incident. They probably, truthfully, only added weight to the structure and no additional support. This game uses its own stupid physics, and to bring real-world fixes into it is a little dumb. So I'm going to do some repairs and then pick it up from there. So in my repairs, I have discovered an interesting quirk. I have twice replaced this block, and it triggers a collapse, leading me to believe that the bridge is under some kind of weird stress now, and I don't entirely understand why. I'm going to replace it one more time. The only thing difference between me and my previous 2 failures is that I didn't let this block and this block get all the way up to max level steel, though it should not make a difference. In fact, it doesn't. So there you go. That is a giant ball of fail. That was cute the way that did that. So this bridge is now just broken. I don't think I can fix whatever that physics problem is. I don't even understand where it's coming from. But that part of the structure is just never going to be intact again. So I'm now quite sure that this entire thing is just going to collapse when I press the button and remove this block here. So that's what I'm going to do now. Just for how. Oh, by the way, this right here, this is not even supposed to be in the game yet. It's a combination of yucca juice and red tea. And it has the effects of both, but it doesn't have a description yet because it's not done. Maybe will never be. I discovered it when I was poking around the creative menu under the developer-only items, and I have been slurping it down while I work away on this. So, without further ado, I'm going to pull this block. Well, let me yank it. Yes, it will. Let's see. And there goes the bridge, ladies and gentlemen. It's very pretty, but it's also R all over. That is... many hours of work by yours truly falling to the bottom of the abyss there. And you see it removed a nice clean section in the middle. You see exactly the number of blocks that you can extend on. And this confirms what has been my suspicion for quite some time. The destroyed bridge that is in Navezgane cannot exist in the game using any of the building materials, because I'm trying this with the max level steel, mostly of which is just for reinforcement. It's not necessary. I think from an actual structural standpoint, the metal reinforced concrete is the same as the polished steel. I just happen to go polished steel because I can. Meaning that if you want to restore this bridge, you have to have a column from the bottom of the abyss all the way up. At least one. Never mind the weird twisting issue I was getting. I don't know why that was happening on this bridge. The rework that I did on the multiplayer server where I've been on does not have that, and it stayed up with just one support just fine without continually breaking apart. So this game is a little wonky, and I'm just going to chalk it up to that. But this does confirm to me, which I grew to suspect, which is there is no way to connect a bridge from this section to this section of the Dead Man's Gulch, or whatever the hell it's called, without some support from the ground, because 7 Days to Die does not have 7 days to build. So there you go. There's not too much to do now except for say goodbye.